Excellent. So we'll get started here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are listening in from. Today's session is AI for Excel, and Brian's the great person and awesome instructor, as well as subject matter expert to walk us through it today. Joining us today is Brian Sims. If this is your first time meeting Brian, here is a quick version of this. He sits right where project management meets generative AI. He spent 15 plus years in education, 10 in project management, and the past 5 going all in AI. These days, Brian heads up curriculum and training at graduate school, working with professionals across both government and private sector. Odds are, if there's a graduate school AI course out there, Brian has either helped build it or is the one teaching it. Over the next hour here, Brian will show you how AI can help with everyday Excel work, writing formulas, cleaning up messy data, and more, plus a few simple tricks to get better results. No prior AI experience is needed. Just bring your curiosity here. Brian, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome. Yep. We'll be looking at an intro to AI for Excel. And if I do, it does look like there's some familiar names on the list. So glad to see some familiar folks. If you haven't had been to one of my classes yet, or a class where I'm teaching, or one of the webinars that I host, you'll know I always try to bring an element of fun and give it a theme where it's appropriate. And I found a pretty good one for today. So buckle in. We'll have a little bit of fun here, and thank you very much for spending your lunch hour with me. We'll take a look today at AI, at the intersection of AI and Excel, helping us do work from end to end. You'll leave today as the emails and website advertising this webinar promise. We'll have a prompt pattern that you can use when you're working with AI in Excel, and you'll have a. I'll try to demo a few different scenarios so you can see the multiple ways that AI can intersect with Excel. So if you, oh, well, I don't have that, so it's not going to be prohibitive. If like, oh, I don't have that license for Copilot or something like that. I'll demo a few different ways that you can kind of make it work. So we'll have some fun together. I'll show you a little bit of what's possible, and we'll get to it. So with that, welcome. Glad to have you with us. What how are we doing on time? We're doing great. So let's do it and get into our theme. And with that, we're going to need warp speed. Did that look familiar for anybody? Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. um, uh, for any Star Trek fans, I'm leaning into the Star Trek with this one. And if you've been to other webinars, you know that this is like a little creative outlet for me sometimes where I get to do something cool with PowerPoint animation. So with this one, it was that us moving into warp speed. Um, so ship's log, stardate 2026, 6/22. The crew has spent 3 hours hand reconciling one workbook, formulas no one remembers, tabs no one trusts, in my best William Shatner impression, by the way. Then someone remembers. We can just ask the computer. What happens next should be impossible. But it isn't. With AI and Excel working together, it's a typical Monday. So I got this theme. I had to look up like how do people like thematically show Star Wars. So I hope I kind of or Star Trek. Woo, faux pas. Star Trek. So I think I kind of captured it. I see a lot of these like pales and pastels and stuff. So having had some fun with this theme. And I picked it because as I understand, I had the pleasure of knowing some people who were on like Amazon Alexa's team and where they were like thinking of a future where we could just do things like very science fictiony, right? And in the Star Trek shows and movies or whatever when they would go computer engage whatever like that was a big catalyst in the advancement of that technology. So when it came to Amazon Alexa, by the way, you'll maybe be not at all surprised to learn that like the nerdery at work there, they were like, oh, let's make this like Star Trek, and that's why today we have you can say Alexa, or you can actually one of the pre-programmable trigger words, by the way, on Alexa. If you go into settings, you can make it computer. which is pretty cool. So that there's, if nothing else, there's your tip from the webinar today. Go to your Alexa and change its wake word to computer. You'll feel like you're on the Enterprise or whatever. So anyway, leaning into that theme because it's true, having fun with it, but it's true. Like it, and it's really awesome how you can just, invoke the computer, even using your voice, through dictation or whatever, and have it make your formula or explain something to you or what have you. So we'll look at some examples and kind of lean in further to this theme throughout our webinar today. So what we'll be looking at, let me click that button there. First, we'll make first contact. We'll briefly talk about what it is, just define some terms and things very, very briefly. Make sure we're pulling from the singing from the same sheet of music here. I'll show you first what I mean. That's actually the first contact bit. I'll show you kind of the art of the possible with a demonstration here, and you'll see AI working in Excel. Then we'll meet the machine, talk about the different ways that AI intersects with Excel, and again kind of exploring the art of the possible there. As I mentioned, I'll talk about our command protocol. We'll look at a framework called, I'll just give the acronym C.E.C, because I have found that we have prompt engineering courses, and if you've maybe attended other webinars, I talk about specific prompt frameworks that are universally applicable, and those will still work when using AI for Excel. But there's a little minutia, I think, at play, like especially if your AI is really in your Excel. So we'll look at a framework that kind of changes that game a little bit and is a little more optimized for an Excel environment. I expect we'll have full time if I can keep my excitement to a minimum, where we'll go through this engage step where I'll show you the full process. We'll take a really messy spreadsheet and through a series of prompts get us to a workable dashboard. So I'll try to leave enough time for that, and then we'll boldly go forward and talk about some next steps. And I will keep hailing frequencies open the whole time. So as Amanda mentioned, I'll keep my eye on the Q&A area. I'm kind of immersed, very Star Trek-esque, kind of immersed by screens here, control panels all around. So I'll keep my eye on QA. If you have anything, the frequencies are open. So I'll try to address it if I can, or if I know it's coming up, I might skip it. So and wait for it to come up a little bit more logically. Okay, so for first contact, let me go out to a demo environment. What I'm going to do is open up a financial spreadsheet. I'll invoke the some AI in our sidebar here. I'll maybe start with Copilot or Claude or something, and we'll see what AI does again, just to sort of get a sense of what can happen here. So let me grab that. I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull up one of that financial model here. I've got some dummy data, nothing proprietary shared here. It's a financial spreadsheet. I've got some assumptions on one tab, revenue model. Actually, let me plug in my prompt here. I'm using Copilot. I'll Copilot in my version showing the UX and features that I have on this account. I have allow editing and chat only. You may see those features. You may see something else. Microsoft is notoriously kind of changing their UI all the time. But this is in fact Copilot. I'm going to ask it, because I'll just go ahead and press send because it may take a little bit, to walk me through how this model works. Summarize each of the tabs, describe the main calculation flow here, and flag any hard-coded values that I should know about. And so I'll scooch that in a little bit, and let that work. While that's working, just to explore this spreadsheet a little bit, I'll zoom in a smidge. We've got several tabs here, as you can see, some assumptions, a little revenue model with some actuals and some projections, P&L, a few different scenarios here that we could maybe use AI to calculate. Spoiler alert, we do that work in the full day course that we have on this topic, and a place to put a dashboard, some dashboard metrics we might want to use. So let's look what it's doing. It's a good start. I see And I love this. This is kind of neat and feels very futuristic-y. I can see the office supplies financial model and the five tabs. Let me dive deeper into each tab to understand the formulas and hard-coded values. While it's thinking, you can click this little down arrow and get a little bit more information. We can see already. So I'd be happy to. Oh, thank you, AI. Let me first explore the workbook structures, what it did first, and then it says it understands the tabs. Now it has the complete picture, and it's giving me its summary down here. So we won't read the whole thing for the sake of time, but it says 5-year financial projection model for Horizon Office Supplies, tab by tab summary, assumptions is what's going on here. And I always like to do a quick spot check just to make sure it's, because I have seen it operate before, where it'll say, yeah, all right, on your assumptions, you've got A through C, and this is what's going on. And, just again, really, really quick work can make a big difference. But this does look like it's catching all the way through F. So that's good. Column F there, revenue model here. A through F again, yes. Recognizes and that's a good idea and we teach more of that about this in the class, but as actually, and we talked about this on my last webinar as well, which is a good one. Go check that out. Where there's where we discussed a 7-step kind of a checklist to go through with working with AI and data analytics. So I'm doing kind of an abbreviated version of that in my head. I'll try to narrate that as I'm walking through this a little bit. But anyway, right, it's walked us through all 5 tabs, given us a little summary of what it's got going on. Even gives me a visual here of of how the flow works. And it did flag the hard-coded values, just like I asked it to, some key observations, and gives me a little postscript down here. Do you want me to build the formulas? Do you want me to fix the dashboard employee count, to link to assumptions? There are things wrong with this model planted on purpose. But with one sentence there, right? Let's talk for a minute about what we just saw. Um, and for that, let me pull back up our slide here. We asked one question, right? I don't know, how, I presume since you're here, right, probably maybe you already work in Excel a lot, perhaps, or are expected to, and are maybe a little bit daunted by that task. And so wherever you are on that spectrum and familiarity with Excel, I presume you can appreciate what we just saw, right? If I sent you that workbook and 5 tabs, all right, let me I guess grab a coffee. Let me figure out what's going on here, right? And so what did they do? Where are the formulas? Let me, trace assumptions and dependencies and stuff. Like it would probably take you, right? I don't know, take me half an hour, right? Figure out what's going on with that. But with AI here, I mean, you saw it, right? I couldn't even read the entire prompt and read through the steps in the time it took for that to answer the question. So like one question took 30, 60 minutes of work in just a couple of minutes, right? And because of the way I structured that prompt, which we'll talk about more in our time together, I stayed in control there, right? Nothing was modified, and no damage was done. So again, we'll talk more about that as we go on. But pretty cool, right? Well, big potential time saver, and it doesn't have to be Copilot. Again, as I mentioned, there are several ways to get to AI, and again, we'll look at some more of that as we go on. So before we do much more of that exploration, let's align on what we're working with here, and when it is to use AI. Which parts of what we just saw are AI? Which parts of what we just saw are Excel, and those types of things. So let's meet our characters here. I do think this is a really useful mental model, hence leaning into the theme here. Think of it, AI like your ship's computer, right? Like think of the characters on the Star Trek show and movies, uh, calling out to the computer and asking for calculations or assessments or to perform some sort of action, right? I think that's a really apt analogy, right? It is not an oracle. I don't know actually if there are any purists. Let me know in in the chat. Was there ever, I should have looked this up before the webinar, was there ever an episode where the computer was wrong? I bet there probably was, right? I'm sure that seems very Star Trek, where like the computers are like, no, it's way too improbable, don't do it, right? And they defied the computer and stayed in control and, beat the odds. That sounds very on brand with the franchise. Um, but it can be very confident, right? Don't do it. There's no way it's going to work, or it is going to work. And, but then the humans being at being the decision makers, just like in the franchise, right? Is an applicable analogy here, right? So it, it can be very confident, but it can also be wrong, right? That's something that we talk about in every one of the AI classes that I teach, and a throughput of every one of the AI interactions that you'll see me go through. I like this too. I think it's a nice marriage because between AI and Excel, because AI is not acting as the calculator here. Excel is. So, and they're both such powerful tools that like AI may write the formula and do what it thinks is best, but Excel will still say, error, that doesn't work, right? Excel is in and of itself so intelligent and such a complicated and awesome program that it will call it, right? That no, that's not going to work. You've got self-defining values or whatever, reciprocal logic here or something like that. So that's nice to know. That's kind of a nice built-in checks and balances. Oh, somebody in chat here. Copilot doesn't have direct access to Excel. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great question in the chat, and that's yeah. We'll demo some more of that here in a little bit, absolutely, and talk about some more of it here in a moment. Great question. Um, it's not right. It's not a source of truth, right? We talk about this in so many classes, so sorry to belabor the point, but especially if this is your first interaction with me or first interaction with one of our webinars, I want to emphasize um, uh, it only knows what you've exposed it to, right? So you might say, point it to one of the points in the Q&A area, like, here's my spreadsheet. What's going on here? That's all it knows, right? It doesn't know the ins and outs of your agency or organization or the context that went into this, right? It's just answering your question, right? So you being a pl like I know this can be really exciting. I'm sure and I hope that you walk away from this webinar extremely excited about the power of AI and Excel. But I can't underemphasize how much you really have to be in control, right? It can look very easily like yeah, set it and forget it. Awesome. How's this model work? Blindly trust it. Like, no, no, you have, how does, in the context of my business, is their recommendation making sense? Did it really capture everything? So it's not a source of truth. It really, really needs us. But this is great too. I think, in a lot of classes and interaction or in webinars and things, I'll call AI intentionally our AI assistant. And I think that's a good label to give it, right? And it's an AI one, right? So unlike a human assistant, good news, it like it says on the slide, fast, cheap, doesn't need to sleep, right? Like that's awesome. Willing to try new things, that's perfect. But on the other side of that spectrum, it's also an assistant, right? It still needs you. You wouldn't trust it with really important tasks and things without your verification. So I think that's a good mental model. Oh, and also, yeah, the AI model matters as well. Yeah, we talk about that a lot more in class, but you're totally right. Yeah, somebody mentioned in the QA area, the model you select makes a big difference too. And I think too, that's a great thing. Good point, Sharon. To keep that in mind, and I say select that proportional to the task, right? Hey, quick, how does this work again? Right, and just like as a reminder, or what might be a good formula here? Like might be great for like haiku or some fast or instant model, but like make a new column. Everything's got to be correct. This, if this hinges on something important, would be a better use case for one of the higher octane models. Okay, so moving on here. It's great for so what AI does do well with Excel? Great for writing formulas. I use that all the time. Again, Excel is one of those. I used to work with somebody who would say, like, you can never have enough training on Excel, right? Like, it's kind of reminds me of the like TI-83 calculators in middle school or high school or whatever. Like, the manual was like this for a calculator. Like, you will never learn everything there is to know about it, right? And anybody who says they do, whoa. So there's a lot, right? And because it's a lot to remember, Excel is a great enabler there. So, hey, what's the formula? I know there's one that does this, or I imagine there is because the manual is so deep. So great for that. Asking AI, what might we do in this scenario? Explaining things step by step. That's great because if you've, big Excel user, or maybe inherit a workbook that has really complex, like nesting different formulas and formulas inside of formulas. I'm like, what is even going on here? AI does a really good job of explaining that. Cleaning messy data. Whew, if anybody, we have any data analysts or statistician type folks watching this recording or attending live with us today, this is massive. Those who are more tenured in Excel, of course, I'm sure, make much quicker work of this than middle of the road or certainly introductory folks. But boy, cleaning messy data and just say, hey, look at this, and there's all kinds of issues. Probably some stuff I can't even see, trailing spaces and things. Just clean it up, right? Great at that. Um, Auditing workbooks like you saw for different risks, things to be aware of, hard-coded values like we explicitly called out. I've used this last one quite a bit. If you maybe uh, have ever wanted to explore. There's these spreadsheets we look at maybe weekly or something, and I wish I could automate this process because it's the same thing, same format. We're continually doing the same type of thing. We could probably write a macro for this, but I've never, I don't know. I don't, I know Visual Basic is supposed to be a really easy language, but I've never taken the time to learn it. And so, all right, well, I guess it's a reality, right? We'll just continue doing this manually. AI is good and getting better at writing VBA macros from a description. Hey, this is a worksheet that I open up every week to log my time, whatever. Can you help me write the macro and give me step-by-step instructions on how to apply this macro? That's something I used quite a bit back in the day. Um, and yeah, summarizing things for stakeholders, great at that. So it can do an awful lot. Oh yes, and to one of the questions, by the way, in the chat, and we'll see that time allowing. I expect yes, it can and will build graphs instead of you doing it manually. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good reminder for me to press on to get to that larger demo too. Hopefully we can see it all. What it won't do, which you may guess already, right? It again, like I said already, teed this up, luckily, it doesn't, it's just going to answer you, right? It's not going to be the arbiter of this making good business sense. It doesn't know your organization's rules. It's not like, of course, right? Nobody's going to take the excuse. I don't know. I plugged it into Excel. It told me we should invest all our money on this. So not my fault, right? You're still the accountable one. Uh, and certainly, I hope it brings us an amount of peace. And if you have uh, senior leaders or something thinking otherwise, that AI is, maybe a replacement for people with domain expertise, send them to one of my classes. Maybe we can talk a lot about how even if it is working and it's perfect today, the AI drifts and there's a lot of other factors, right? It's really not a long-term replacement for people paying attention and verifying output and things. So it's great, but it doesn't do everything. Excuse me. Moving on for the sake of time, three big ways that AI can intersect with Excel. And so, to one of the questions in QA, right, everybody has different access, especially in a federal or government environment where most of the students I work with are in like we're evaluating Copilot but don't have it yet, or some departments have it, some don't, or these folks are allowed to use Gen AI and these others aren't. And I know it's a real mixed bag, which, by the way, is why in classes everything's very demo driven and like do the activity if you can. I really hope you can, but let me at least show you, right? A lot of kind of like what I'll be doing in this webinar here today. But for one, and to answer one of the questions in the QA, is you can get it in the browser. Just go into, Claude.ai or ChatGPT.com, and copy and paste, right? This is, if your machine can access it, of course, this is nice, right? It works everywhere, as long as it's not blocked, right? You don't have to install anything. It's not live or whatever, right? It can't make the changes in the workbook that you upload. But there's plenty of scenarios where that's very, very useful, which is what we'll talk about next. So you can access this and have AI do some work with you on your browser. Sidebar add-in. There, I use there's a Claude plugin for Excel that I use quite a bit. Claude is really good with complex data and complex financial models. That's kind of my default, honestly. Um, ChatGPT also has a plugin for Excel that, well, I don't know. Don't tell nobody. We don't have anybody from OpenAI here, do we? I like that I have that because sometimes Claude is down, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm not in the woods, I can ask ChatGPT. So hands to heart, to be fair to ChatGPT for Excel, I have used it less, but it does have one. And a real advantage, actually, as a last time I checked, which is maybe a good way for you to wade in to the experience, is at least last time I looked, and things change a lot. So quote me, but don't quote me. Um, Claude for Excel, you had to be on one of the paid plans, but ChatGPT for Excel, you didn't. So that's kind of nice. If you want to get that little sidebar action, like I was just showing, again, and it's been some time since I last looked, but you could be on one of the free plans and still have ChatGPT in the sidebar, which was kind of nice. So that's nice. Also, natively, of course, Excel is a Microsoft product. Copilot is one of Microsoft's products. Um, that is extremely powerful. That's what I showed in the demo, and lots of advantages to using da, da, da. Oh, okay, got it. No problem. Just looking in the chat. Good idea. Yeah, using Copilot is a really good idea as well. It's purpose built for Excel, and it shows. And super quick summary of Copilot and what I found is it's while it may not be as powerful as, say, Claude or some of the other things, now that it has started to spread its wings a little bit and encompass other models, like Claude, Claude is now a selectable model within Copilot. Um, uh, it's getting much more powerful, and it was built with integration in mind, and it shows in some nice little nuanced ways. So if it's like gotta be correct, Copilot is probably a good place to turn. So in the interest of time, um, looking at those three places again, using the browser, this is great. I think here's a couple of use cases. Maybe I won't walk through all of these for the sake of time, but you might, when I think of using the browser, this might be a good, like, let me just attach my document and, hey, here's the document. What might be some good formulas, or can you draft a macro for the document? I'll go into the document. I'm going to be doing the work myself, but here's what I'm looking at. Can you just answer some questions for me? That's kind of a good use case, I think, for the browser. For the sidebar add-in, Claude and ChatGPT, I think I'll maybe lean on, if you have a preference for Claude or a preference for ChatGPT, then that's great. They're there. They do a lot of the same things that Copilot can do. And Copilot is, just there already, which is awesome. And if you're on an enterprise plan with Copilot, it is even more powerful because it's going to be more secure than Claude and ChatGPT, because you're on that enterprise plan and have that enterprise level protection. And it may be able to access, depending on the security settings and things, may be able to access the rest of your organization's data graph. So it could maybe even pull in. I've seen it do this, which is really cool, where you're maybe asking questions about a particular spreadsheet or something, but it might, because it's connected to a part of the larger whole, may bring in outside information that is sometimes helpful too. So kind of different use cases for each scenario to summarize. All right, and Excuse me. So with that, I want to move towards that prompt framework that I was talking a little bit about. And so let's discuss. Let's get into working with AI in Excel, regardless of which way you're coming into contact with it. Um, so uh, probably don't need, doesn't need to be said, but I'm not sure how many folks we have here who are maybe even brand new to the AI scene. There's nothing wrong with having a, more vague prompt because good news about AI, right? You can iterate your way there, right? But there's ways to be much more efficient than by giving it a lot more information up front, and that's where to make it a short story, that's where prompt frameworks and giving it a little bit of thought beforehand can help, right? Why spend 20 minutes going back and forth with the AI when, well, let's see, what am I really trying to accomplish here? Take the 20 seconds to kind of think of the output and what you're trying to get out of it, and then start after that little breather. You're going to get to a usable output much, much faster, right? So, as it says on the slide, you could say, hey, help me write VLOOKUP. And you've seen AI probably, right? Or you can imagine it'll say, sure, that's a great idea, right? The AI is so, happy little puppy dog to please you. And it'll maybe give you a small little write-up on where VLOOKUPs come from and how they work or whatever, right? But that's clearly not what you're looking for, right? You are looking for a VLOOKUP formula to do a specific thing. When you write something vague like that, it's guessing, right? I don't know what columns are you dealing with and all that sort of stuff. So if we can give it a blueprint, as the slide says, or some sort of guide, so think framework, then you're going to get there much faster. And for that, we do teach, and there are a bunch of frameworks out there, and you can kind of make them fit, as I said in the introduction, and they'll do fine. They'll do great. But one that's sort of purpose built for AI with Excel is C.E.C. And it's luckily pretty short and easy to remember. But in this example, that stands for context, example, and constraints. Which are slightly more condensed than like some of the others that I teach in class, not to give too much away there. But I think you don't have to be necessarily as robust because I'm already in Excel. You know what I'm doing, right? You know what I'm looking at. So you can trim even a little bit more of the fat, right? So describing your sheet, and I should say too, right? And even then, as you can probably guess by looking at or glancing at these descriptions, you maybe don't always need even all three of these, depending on, is the AI literally in your spreadsheet or are you just attaching a document, those types of things. But to at least walk through what each of these are and kind of what the model is again, C is the context, so that's you describing the sheet. So that may, like, say you're using a browser and uploading a document, you may say, like, this is a financial model. It's got, these types of columns. This is financial data from the last 3 years. And we've got, some tabs for assumptions, and somebody else's guess is tab number 3, but I want, tab number 4, and here's why I'm coming to you, or something like that, right? So you could put all that in sort of your context bit of the prompt. Example, super duper powerful, especially for like formula writing and things. So that's exactly what you would think it would be. Like, here's kind of the output that I'm looking for. So like right now we have this in column C and this in column A, and ideally in my output I would want this other new thing in column E. So for example, like we've got, Brian in the first column and Sims in the third column. I wish in column E it just said Brian Sims, for example. That's me, you painting done for the AI. And C, constraints, as it says, so any guardrails, right? And this is the one you may need less of if well, any of these, I guess you may need less of, depending on how you are coming to AI within Excel. But like it may be useful. Like again, I'll use the browser example because I think that's the best one, where it may be makes sense because it will diametrically change its difference, change its answer to say, oh, and by the way, I'm still on, Excel 97, by the way. You know, oh, okay, well then I'm not going to give you any recommendations that that talk about X lookup because that didn't even exist. It's V lookup all the way or whatever, right? So any constraints it needs to know about seasonality of the business or anything that you think it might want to know. So to bring that to life a little bit, uh, some differences, right? Yeah, a vague prompt might be, help me write a VLOOKUP formula for our employees, right? Okay, right? And it'll ask you some questions and you will eventually get there, right? But like it says on the slide, right? Expect multiple back and forths. It's going to have some questions. You're going to have some explaining to do. But with C.E.C, if you did something more like this, is it going to be perfect? Hopefully, maybe, probably. But it might be just this one try or one try with a little bit of steering afterwards, right? You're going to get to something usable much, much faster. Again, just take the extra couple seconds to give it a little bit more context and add a little bit more color to what you're asking it, and you'll get there a little bit faster. So that's a good practical thing I hope you can walk away from this webinar with. C.E.C, context, example, constraints. Just add that little bit of extra time and you'll get something usable a little bit quicker. One thing I want to add though before I move on from this um, is well, there's a lot of little Brian lessons learned in here, but here's one of them for sure. Ask your AI to not use hard-coded values. The first several times I interacted with any one of these, it would especially the in-app versions where I would say add a column where it's first name last name together or something, and it would do that, but then it would just statically say Brian Sims, and then I don't know, I changed my name or got married or something like that, or now employee number 4 is no longer Brian Sims, now it's someone else, right? That doesn't actually change. So doing something like this is something I would recommend, to add maybe to your first prompt or go into custom instructions or something and give it this instruction, right off the bat, perhaps. Use formulas with cell references, like never use hard-coded values, because that's a bit of a gotcha. That has got me. That has got to me before. So let that not happen to you. And it's easily testable too, right? You can, when you have that new column, go and change somebody's name or change somebody's value, and if the AI generated bit changed, then it's working. Or you can click in the cell that it created and make sure it's a formula up there and not just something that's typed. So that can be a little sneaky. There's something good to see. All right, so I want to show you. Let me go out to another demo environment here and see some of what I just talked about at work. And I'll use the C.E.C framework on a new one of our data sets here. So let me pull up. I think it's not the financial model one. No, it's a raw orders. Let me pull up this other one. We'll see C.E.C at work here. So I've got Claude. Well, no, this is Copilot still. Let me just show you. Here's Claude. Ooh, is it connected on this account? Maybe for that reason, I should stay with Copilot. Yeah, here, I'll do this. Let me switch my accounts. There's Claude and ChatGPT. I'll go to Claude. Ah, you want me to log back in? I don't want to do that. Think. All right, I'm not going to log back in. I don't want to make you sit through all that noise. So I'll go back here and use Copilot again. All right, so close, back to Copilot. All right, awesome. So then let me put in my C.E.C prompt that I pre-typed. I was hoping to show you on another one of those. It was logged in earlier, but essentially it works the same. A little sidebar over here on the side. So I'm going to tell it, I'll go ahead and hit send because it may take a minute while it's looking. First of all, this is a new data set, not the one that I showed previously. We've got some order data, customer names. You can even tell by looking at it, right? It's got clearly there's some extra spaces and the capitalization's a little messed up. We've got dates of all different formulas or all different formats rather. Uh, so here's what I've told it. I've given it some context. I've got some order data in Excel. Column G has quality, H has unit price, uh, as some context. Right, I'm asking it to write a formula for K2, which is scooching over, that calculates uh, the line total with a 15% bulk discount when the quality is greater than 10. Example, and here's the E, right? Example, row 2 has a quantity of 15 and a price of that without a discount, a blah. Row 4 has a quantity of this and a price of that. With no discount, the total would be this. I'm telling it to use Excel 365, which I guess I could have done this one in the browser as well, and explain the formula after writing it. So in that time, while I was reading that, it actually did it. Like, see this little rainbow? Let me zoom in here a little bit. That little rainbow box, that means this was AI generated. So I can see that this is where it took its actions, and it's explaining to me here in the side panel what it did. Here's the formula I added. Again, let's verify that it did in fact do that, and it's not something hard coded. And here's the proof that it is indeed a formula. And here's how it works. It breaks that down, gives me some verification. Oops. Do. Both match your expected values. The formula is K2. To apply this answer to all rows, you could copy the cell. Uh, and uh, and just for to show a little bit of the magic, I'm going to say, can you apply this to all rows? And I'm going to follow this up, right? Because I'm working with AI in Excel in the workbook, and I'm going to say and add a $500 cap. Let's see what it does here. See, there's that little rainbow working. And again, it's telling us what it's doing. I'll update the formula to include a $500 cap, apply it to all 80 rows. It says it's verifying that the cap is working correctly by checking a high value order, and it updated the formula. And here's how it works again. Here's the verification it did. Nice. I'll say done. Very good, right? Uh, so super cool. We can see that working. Alrighty then. So let me go back here. We'll move now to our, isn't that neat? I love being able to demonstrate that in class and sometimes where people, especially if you're in sort of the business of, yeah, I've been using ChatGPT all these years and I drag and drop and it tells me what formula to use. And then, all right, cool. I'll take that. Let me go back to row K, add my title, and then I'll add the formula like it told me in K2, and then drag that all the way down, and then go to conditional formatting or whatever, right? Which, by the way, you can say, add conditional formatting to anything that, breaks our $500 cap rule or something like that. And it will, again, do that work within the Excel spreadsheet for you. All right. So because I'm really proud of these dividers, so I got to at least show you. All right, now we're going to move to engage. Here's the full demo. I want to show you the whole process. I'm going to open up a spreadsheet and we're going to go from messy data that needs a whole bunch of work all the way to, and this will answer some of the questions that are up there as well, having visuals and things that we can share with some stakeholders. So let's engage. So it is actually using, I believe, we'll demonstrate on this same data set here. Yes, we will. All right, so I'm going to ask it first. I'll stay in Copilot here. For this, I think I really have to stay in the Copilot version for what I want to demonstrate. But to one of the earlier questions, yeah, you could do as I just described with K2. You could, in fact, pull up one of those, pull it up in your browser and do very similar steps. You'll just have to do the manual back and forth if this hasn't been approved yet. But let me do this here. Okay, so I am going to close this out. Let me delete what it just did. Sorry. Sorry, Copilot. But we want to start fresh. I'm going to open up a new chat here, and I'm going to allow editing again. If you, for safety reasons, if you ever wanted to stay and just chat, like, hey, explain this. Just I want to feel secure that you're not messing with anything. You could put it in chat here, but I'll allow editing because we do, in fact, want it to do some work for us eventually here. I'm going to say now, uh, ask it to audit this data for us. Oh, and I missed the first couple words, which actually maybe that's a good demonstration. I'm going to hit stop, which that was appeared right there. If we found you made a mistake, that's easy enough to do. Let me actually grab the whole prompt and paste it in. Paste. There we are. And this is a neat one to remember, by the way. I'm in the habit, obviously you do your own thing, but I kind of keep it in edit mode all the time out of, I don't know, laziness or efficiency. I don't know. But you can even have it in edit mode and add some, a little, this little extra sentence, but don't make any changes or something like that, or just explain your way through this before we actually apply anything, something like that. And even if you're in edit mode, it won't actually do anything. It's going to audit this for us and give us a little report here. I analyzed all the records. Here's your report. Here's what's inconsistent. There's in the date formats, encasing and customer name. There's some leading and trailing white space, like that really jumped out to us. Inconsistent values, product categories, product names. This is intentionally really, really dirty stuff. Inconsistent sales rep names, status, so on and so on and so on. No changes have been made. Would you like me to proceed? And that gives you some ideas on what to do next. But in here, for the sake of time, I know exactly what I want to do next. I'm going to paste it in, fix the issues you identified, standardize the region names, trim extra spaces, and fix name capitalization. And I'm going to make this smaller and zoom out a bit so we can watch it work because this is really cool. I know you're not going to be able to read this anymore, but like watch the rainbow do its thing. This is their computer, just fix this for me. And this is it doing the work, which I think is so cool. Scooch over. Like arguably like one of the cooler AI use cases. I can say, yeah, clean this up and then like go heat up my coffee and come back and it's done. Like amazing stuff. Making new columns here, clean, 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 clean. Of course, if I wanted it to be another document entirely, I could say, make a new tab and put all the clean, data on the new tab or something like that, um, or give me the information to put in a new document or whatever. Right? You can tell it's still working because I've got the stop sign here. Looking over at questions just in case. Oh yeah, building graphs. Yes, we will see that. Absolutely. Yes, and again, yeah, very similar functionality by uploading the file to Excel. Again, you'll just have to do that copy and paste back and forth though. All right, so here it's done. It did some cleaning here and explained what it did. Actually, dangerous to check this out live, but I know at least in the web version, also too, which is a neat little yeah, actually I do think this is in the web version. But let me just say then, if you're in the web version, you can go to I believe it's in the review tab of the web version and see the changes. And yeah, see, it's grayed out here. But as Excel is changing your workbook, if you want to go backwards a couple of steps, you can go to review and go and take a couple of steps back or revert to, pre uh, AI taking over on your workbook if you need to. That's again in the web version. The web version of Excel generally gets all new features first, by the way. So if you're like, "Ooh, I saw somebody doing this online. How come I can't do it yet?" The answer is they're probably on a web version. But it is a little tricky because Microsoft does roll out different features to different tenants at different times and things. So here it told me what it did. Let me ask it its next add a column to the cleaned data called total to equal the quantity times the unit price for using formulas as add a grand total to the bottom. Watch this work. Why not product and quality? Yeah, good question. And that's something if we were actually doing the work, we could, question it on. Yeah, why wouldn't it? Let's see. Oh, it did do product category. It looks like here. Yeah, but that's a great point. Somebody brought up in chat. Yeah, again, right? Throughput of everything. I'm going intentionally fast because we only have a limited time together. But you would always want to make sure it's doing what you wanted to do and did everything move over cleanly. In this instance, it does look like, oh, product category came over, but not product. Yeah, interesting. I see. So that would, excuse me, be a good thing to question with it. And it's funny too, like back to one of the things that we were talking about at the beginning, or funny is probably the wrong word. But it again, speaking from experience, like I would imagine, I'm going to post in the next prompt while I'm talking through this, where like it's like, yeah, done. It's so confident and like I'm ready to move on to the next thing. You so need. It's actually maybe even good that that happened, right? Really driving home my point that you have to be the one to verify. It will skip stuff and be ready to move on. I have worked with this before where I've said, do some analysis and create three visuals that I can use, whatever. And it does an analysis, a great analysis. And it's like ready to move on. But like, where are my visuals? Like you never made those. And I'll say, hey, what happened to the visuals? Are there somewhere I can't see them? And it'll say something again, very puppy dog like, oh, you're right. I never made those. Let me get to that now. So you really do have to be and stay in the driver's seat. Yeah, why would it not do that? I don't know, because there's clearly things wrong with the product category. So, yeah, a great point actually to see live. It will miss stuff. So, you've got to stay in control here. While I was doing that explanation, I moved on to the one of the last prompts I wanted to show you. I'm asking it to give us three charts here. And in this instance, wow, right on cue. Thank you, Copilot. And this answers one of the earlier questions. It built those for me. Uh, and again, I want to do all the necessary QC on that too, making sure it's pulling from the right things. But I really wanted to show that, especially because we got some questions about it. And then I'll ask it its last one too. The last prompt I have pre-prepared. Create a new sheet called dashboard. Add KPI cards for total revenue, total orders, average order value. Look, my hands are up here, by the way. Move all three charts into the database sheet, right? And this is it doing it, right? And again, throughput of all of this, we need to verify. And if too, I'll say while this is working, like if I don't like these colors or I want to make changes, you can just ask that in plain language, and it will do that. We talk about this in more detail in the course, and but there's it's really neat too. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on really quickly here. But just know that there are ways you can give this custom instructions through the settings, and you can connect this, say Copilot or Claude or ChatGPT. If you also have this plugin in, say, PowerPoint, there are ways you can create harmony between those two applications and say, hey, this dashboard looks great. Can you make a PowerPoint slide for each one of these visualizations, right? Then go have your lunch. When you come back, you'll have a PowerPoint presentation with each of these in PowerPoint for you too. And that's the AI working across platforms. Really cool stuff. So done, right? Uh, did it do a good job, right? We would want to verify and all that good stuff. So, want to move us ahead here a little bit. Talked already about not editing necessarily. Oh, and always a great idea too. I'm sure you're probably thinking this already, but great idea to, save a backup, right? Before you do the AI work, I have kind of gotten in the habit of just, underscore backup or something, and that's my home file, and I'll maybe give the AI access to one or the other, because Luckily, if you employ what I mentioned on like the website of things, or you could just undo, 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 or erase the new columns. Like there's ways around it, but sometimes if you get way down in the workflow, it's like, oh geez, this is the original is so distant from where we are now. What did that original even look like? So sometimes saving that backup. Or asking it to perform all actions on a new tab so that that original tab is left intact. Those are a couple useful things, I think. So going forward here for the sake of time, right? And we saw it live, actually. Happy accident, I guess. You got to verify everything because it will miss stuff. I have no idea why it didn't pick product. That certainly wasn't in our prompt, right? So good news, bad news thing to see. It's gonna get some stuff wrong, right? As I say in every single class, right? Your agency's AI policy supersedes anything Brian says in this or any one of our courses. So if you don't know what that is, or that's a great thing to find out. Those are the words to live by. Uh, in the absence of that, or even with that, I mean, Brian's recommendations, we're never putting PII or anything that's pre-decision or clients' data, those types of things into consumer tools. If you're on an enterprise plan and you're allowed to do those things, then obviously, again, that's up to your org's AI policy. And proportional to the importance of the task, like big decisions, making reports and things. We teach it's always a good idea to disclose that AI was a partner in making this decision. They helped me reason through the steps and things. So that's a couple of tips on responsible use as we close this out. Um, I would encourage everybody. So as we boldly go forward here, there's a lot, a lot to. The technology's moving really fast, obviously, right? Probably don't have to tell anybody about that. The best way that you're going to learn is by trying new things. And again, kind of good news, bad news. There's many different ways that you can interact with AI in Excel. And again, good news, bad news, the interface is a little bit different. And the way you behave in those interfaces is going to be different, right? If you're using it on the web, let's say like Excel on the web, you will literally have features that don't exist in the desktop app. That's just the way they do it, right? So no two, right? You're not crazy. Big deep breath. I swear I can do this in this version. How come Carol's able to do this and I can't? Well, are they using a web version or whatever? There's another instructor who teaches the Copilot course. We work for the same company. We're on the same tenant of Microsoft. And we were doing something in Copilot just a couple weeks ago. And he was saying, oh, yeah, so when you go here, you click this and this and this. And I'm like, that's not what I do. I can't do that. And we ended up sharing screens. And same org, same tent. His Copilot looks different than mine. We're both like super admins, and and it's just as different, right? It Microsoft is doing it that way. Hate it or love it, that's how it is. So, um, really, experimentation on exactly your specific setup is going to be your best teacher. Um, give the C.E.C framework a try. Context, example, constraints, and to again one of the questions, using this in the browser is I think where that's really going to sing, because it's not living inside your workbook and able to make changes in there. So think C.E.C, especially when you're in the browser, but in any one of those instances, you can drop some of the other letters from some of the other frameworks when you're doing AI specifically in Excel. So that's a good one to remember. And yeah, see, right, and AI isn't necessarily going to be needed for every single task too. Again, maybe on one hand, I think it's good to pilot on small little data sets, but on the other hand, as and if that's your purpose and your angle, then fantastic. Use that to get a good sense of what's going on. That's probably a lot smarter than some 80,000 row data sheet or something. But once you're past that learning curve, right, you'll make the best decision. It may take longer for you to have AI do the analysis on a 10 by 4 data set. I just out of habit started to do that the other day and was like, analyze what's going on in this data model. I'm like, dude, really? Like, stop. It's that big. Like you can like use your own brain, right? Uh, So there's a time and place, and you'll know what's best for you and your use case and what's allowed. So with that, I'll call out two quick things here as we wrap up with our last minute. This is part of a whole course where we do a much deeper dive into all of this. It's called AI for Excel. The code is AI5. And one of the neat things about it, if you're interested, is we do all of this. We go through all of these steps. We talk about the C.E.C framework, and we look deeper into how to getting those AI things plugged into the sidebar, and lots more demonstrations. Just it's a lot more of everything we talked about. But one of the other cool things too is, like it says on the slide, you can bring your own data, be it from work if you're allowed to do that, or something from home, and we can kind of workshop that throughout the day. So that's been kind of fun in past examples where they're like, I brought my bills spreadsheet, and obviously nobody else can see that, but that's what I'm going to be working on for this class, and I'm going to use this training class to finally get my bills and budget in order. Like, hey, great, way to have multiple benefits for your training day. So specifically, a lot of what we talked about here is derivative from that class, AI for Excel. But we also have a lot of other AI classes. Graduateschool.edu/AI shows you all of those classes. The hailing frequencies have been open this whole time. Thank you all for asking questions. That did add quite a bit to the discussion. So thank you for those who added that. And I know we're at time. So with that, make it so. Enjoy. Thank you all so much for spending your lunch hour with me. I hope you learned a couple of new and exciting things, and stay curious. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.